welcome to the Keyboard Road Warrior with me, Movies Ghost 007, where we play Euro Truck Simulator 2 with a keyboard on a laptop. So, at the end of the last journey, we leveled up. So you can see we've got a skill point to apply, but as previously stated, we're out of vehicle upgrades now, so there won't be any more of those. And we are at level 31 now, so we've got this skill point and another 5 to apply. So eco driving is where we're going to place our skill point upgrade today. So rank 5 gives us a 30% fuel saving on vehicles on all journeys. That's without a trailer. I don't know why they feel the need to double up on that, but I could understand it if the percentages were different, but they're not. Anyway, so that is our skill point. We've got 5 more to apply. 1 for long distance, 1 for high value, 1 for fragile, 1 for just in time, and then the last eco. And then we'll be fully skilled up. So you can see our rating has jumped. We're at now 9.2 now. That will gradually rise with each additional skill point, but because we are upgrading it in an even way, that's the way it's gone. So let us get our vehicle and take it to be repaired, and then get some rest, and then select our next job. So that eco driving will help us with distances. we're able to go further and further on the same amount of fuel. 30% is quite a lot, actually. 30% is quite a saving. Oh, it's quiet. There we go. Oh, parking brake's still on. Right, let's get out of this place. We need a right turn, and we're going to head. Right, so I'm still rocking the 1.6 update, and I understand that there are issues with the 1.6 update. I don't know, invisible walls, things like that. They have issued a 1.61, but that has provided its own issues apparently. So I'm going to stick with 6.0 until such time as they release 6.3. 6.2, sorry. They released 6.1. 6.1 had the issues. 6.2 is hopefully the one that they where they correct all the issues. So I'm going to add some fuel actually. Yeah, let's go to our garage and add some fuel. Okay, that didn't work for me. Oof, nearly. Right. So let's just look at the... Yeah, 4%, we need that garage. I was wondering if we could get away with... Let's pull a Yui into our petrol. Alright, engine off. Let's fill up with fuel. I don't... Ooh, 122. It's still expensive in France. Still expensive. So we spent was it £553 and 451.8 litres. All right. Well, let's go rest and repair then. So back the way we came. Alrighty, pop into the garage. I forget which manufacturer that is now. I think it might have been Renault. Right, let's repair. £4,257. That's £593 for 2% on the engine, £249 for 1% on the transmission, £955 for 3% on the 3% on the chassis, £1,895 for 3% on the cabin, and £565 for 4% on the wheels. So let's repair those. Get out of that. I want to have a quick look at the upgrades. We've got all of the available upgrades for this vehicle now, so let's have a quick look. Now, obviously I don't want to do that because I don't want to get rid of my lovely big tank. I've got the largest engine available to me. Okay, I got that. That will be more useful to me when I've got the steering wheel and I'm able to add the retarder. Yeah, I might paint it. Obviously not here, not with those boring colours. Oh, I know. Oh, no, exhaust. Let's look at the tyres. See what we can see. Got anything chromey? No. No, cancel that. Yeah. No, there's nothing here. Let's have a look at paint. Let's have a look at the paint schemes. That's quite funny. That one doesn't really work because an awful lot of my truck is obscuring the design. No, boring. Looks like a tattoo. Looks like another tattoo. Boring. Boring. I wonder if I made it red and then made that one sort of a goldeny colour. What do you reckon? Any good? I don't know. No, let's have it. Oh no, £34,000. Stuff that. 34 grand for a bit of a paint job. No, we'll wait until we've got our custom paint job that I actually want, that I've actually chosen. Oops, hello. Let's rest here. Right, so again, oh, rain. Don't want rain. Nighttime. Don't like nighttime. 5 AM. It'll be daylight in a couple of hours of game time. So I'm sorry. I'm taking a sip of coffee because I'm a little bit thirsty. So I had to use my right hand. Let's get some gainful employment. I had to use my right hand to hit the escape key because my left was all the way over holding a mug of coffee. So, Krakow. Have we visited Krakow? Don't think we visited Krakow. Mama, Calais. Newcastle, we haven't visited Newcastle. Croydon. Not Lyon. They're too close. Wow. Look at the money we're getting from Krakow in Poland. Okay, I think we're going to go with Krakow. Yep, no, I think we're going to do that. So it's a 33-hour, so it's going to be another marathon like the last one was. So that sets the GPS. And and let me get my screenshot as per. You know me. Obviously, with this one, it doesn't really give you much scope. Okay, that'll do. Right, so let's go pick up our load. Alrighty, still a bit quiet. Alright, then we're going to make a left turn. Sorry, right. A right turn. I'm a bit curious. That garage doesn't, the dealership doesn't have a flag on it. Hang on. Truck dealers. And no, it's not Renault. Not Daphne. It's Iveco. I wonder why it's not showing the Iveco flag. Hang on. Okay. Alright, we're gonna pull up at this one because there's traffic coming. I don't particularly want to do damage to my newly repaired truck. Alrighty. Right, let's rock. So we're not going to be picking up a garage at the end of this journey. We are going to be picking up a brand new town, though. Right, let's pick up our load. Take the job. There it is. So you can see we've got a ton of money. We're at 3.8, nearly 3.8 million. Right, let's rock. Nope, that's not good. I almost never used to have problems lining up the trailer. Suddenly I am. Right. So we've got 61 hours to deliver these pressure tanks. Okay. Alright, let's hope we can try and perform with excellence today. This is a long journey though, so it's highly unlikely. It's more likely that I will make some kind of error. So, today I'm going to talk about politics a little bit. It's a little bit in the news for a couple of reasons. American politics obviously seems to dominate world politics for some reason. New Zealand politics seem almost childlike by comparison to American and British politics. It's a small country with a small population, and as such, their political complaints tend to be on the same scale as their population. It's the small issues that seem to wind them up. It's quite amusing. As again, 4.2 million people. These things that make their news, that the Kiwis deem newsworthy, just seems a little bit bizarre to me. For instance, the German entrepreneur Kim.com, who presided over a large pirating franchise, which allowed people to share illegally downloaded files. I've not encountered this kind of. This is very reminiscent of a British motorway junction It's a roundabout over the motorway. That's very interesting. I like that. All right, we're now about to join a road I've already driven on. I think this might have been the road I came in on. So, but in Britain, in America, they are talking about the Affordable Care Act at the moment, which is it's supposedly insultingly referred to as Obamacare by people that oppose it. Although the number of people that oppose it has been diminishing by a daily basis, and in fact, this slow trickle of people signing up for it has become an avalanche. 7.1 million people signed up for it. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot. My guess is that most of these people did not have access to health insurance before. Oh, crikey. A lot of people won't have signed up for it because they don't need to, because health insurance is provided by their employer. That will be most Americans, I would have thought. It's such a big thing that the average American will have health insurance provided for by his employer. Some people will decide to sign up for Obamacare because they are no longer, insurance companies are no longer required to prevent you from taking cover. They're not allowed to ditch you as a customer. But if you have a terminal illness, or you have an ongoing illness, or you have an illness which is going to cost a lot of money, which isn't terminal but costs a lot of money in terms of medicine and treatment, things like cancer, HIV, things where you can be in remission but still have to take drugs, diabetes, where you're constantly having to have kidney dialysis and where you're having to have drugs to deal with the diabetes. Insurance companies are not allowed to discriminate you. They're not allowed to do that anymore, which is an amazing and wonderful thing. And I think I can't understand why more Americans don't understand what an absolute... I don't even have the words for it. It's something that, as a Brit, I have taken for granted, that I will always have my healthcare. I've paid. We in the United Kingdom, we pay some, as part of our work, from our wages directly to the government. We pay something called national insurance. And national insurance covers two things. It covers healthcare and it covers our pension, our state pension. Now I have a Xerox pension. And I also, because I worked for Xerox, and I also have a pension with my current employer. So I'll have 3 lots of pension. It still won't be a lot of money, but hopefully by that point I will have paid my mortgage, and so my outgoings will have been slashed by 2/3, or maybe 1/3 actually. The largest part of your outgoings is usually accommodation. So then my outgoings will be food, electricity, heating, rates, and necessaries. And then any spare money will be, pocket money used, things like going on holiday, replacing items in the house that wear out, that sort of thing. But my outgoings shouldn't be nearly as astronomical once I've paid the mortgage, and so the pension doesn't have to be as large as the paycheck, in theory. But yes, so I pay for it. It's not free. We pay for our healthcare. But we put into the pot. We all put into the pot, knowing that there's a chance we won't need to borrow on it. Now, I actually have needed to borrow on that. I've had a surgery, and I've had 3 hospital stays in the last 3 years, in 2011, I had a 2-week hospital stay with pancreatitis. In 2013, I had 2 hospital stays. One while they investigated unbearable chronic acid reflux, and then a month or 2 later, I had to go into hospital to have my gallbladder removed by keyhole. The keyhole surgery to remove the gallbladder sorted out my acid reflux issues. Essentially, my gallbladder was kicking gallstones into various parts of my anatomy. It's what shut down my pancreas briefly, which caused me an immense amount of pain. And it's what was causing my acid reflux. The loss of the gallbladder means that I have to be careful when I eat fatty foods. It means if I eat fatty foods, I've got to sort of go for it, as it were. Because when you start eating fatty foods, you produce a lot of bile in order to process the fat. And the gallbladder is there partly to store the bile, so that your stomach can keep processing the fat. It's another one of these fantastic over the motorway. Yeah, it's not a roundabout, excuse me, it's just a road. Oh, there's another little bit of road that I haven't been on. Oh, it's frustrating. You're going on a journey to a particular destination. I think what will happen is I'll reach a certain point where I don't need to earn money, where it's not about money, where my bank balance is so astronomical that I don't need to worry, and then I will just journey to the roads that I haven't driven on to discover them. Now, that may or may not be interesting to you guys, because obviously this is Euro Truck Simulator and it's about simulating driving a truck. Now, part of driving a truck is pulling a load, and if I'm not pulling a load, I don't know how interesting that's going to be for you. Maybe it'll be more interesting. I will certainly be able to go faster, that's for sure. But if you're not into that, just let comments below. But this is my 80th journey. I calculated that I needed 81 journeys. I needed to be at journey 81 to cover the gap between my leaving New Zealand and my wife arriving in the UK. I'm going to have more than that. I'm going to try and keep the... Obviously, I won't be on the breakneck pace. I've been doing 2 a day for 4 to 5 days a week in order to be ahead of the game. So at some point, that's not going to be the case. But I'm going to continue making videos. At the moment, I'm bringing it down to 1 a day, 4 days a week. Although I'm putting up 3 a week, so I am sort of adding, every week I'm adding an extra one. Just so that I've got a buffer in case anything happens. I don't want to sort of cut it fine and then, not be able to provide you guys with videos on schedule. Although I have to apologise, the last couple of weeks I have been kind of off schedule with some of my videos. March 31st I missed posting for reasons that I don't want to go into, and the week before I also on the Wednesday I missed posting a video. That one I just got caught up in stuff and forgot to hit the publish button on it, which is the problem when you are you're recording and downloading them in advance. Sometimes you can forget that you've got to hit the publish button. They're on YouTube, they're just not public, and you forget that. Just because they're on YouTube doesn't mean people can see them. So I will, as I said last week, I forgot. This week, reasons beyond my control, but I will try to make sure. Also, when I was on holiday with my wife and the in-laws for a week in an area of New Zealand called the Northlands, and I wasn't able to. Sorry, no, it wasn't New Zealand. Sorry, it wasn't Northlands. It was Melbourne. Sorry, I was in Melbourne for a week with the Grand Prix, and the hotel Wi-Fi wouldn't let me get onto YouTube, and so I wasn't able to access the YouTube account in order to release the videos. And so I was 3 videos behind, and I posted them on the Monday as soon as I was back in the UK, back in New Zealand. Sorry. I did thoroughly enjoy that Australia trip, and I have talked about that already, so there's no need for me to. Wow, that Scania is going for it. It's putting the pedal to the metal. So, 33 hours, we're at 28, so we're 5 hours into our journey. So American politics, politics in general, and I was talking about Obamacare, or another thing that happened in American politics, which is a little bit disturbing, is that the Supreme Court Chief Justices of the Supreme Court of the United States have smashed a bill which would have controlled campaign financing. It's a little unsurprising. The Chief Justices are predominantly conservative, which means that they're more in line with the Republicans. This will not change until one of them dies. You're a Chief Justice until you decide you've had enough or you die. And so unfortunately Obama, for his last 3 years, is stuck with has been stuck with a conservative Supreme Court, and they want to ensure, it would appear that they want to ensure that conservatives are able to raise massive war chests, and they're able to spend money creating adverts which essentially lie about things like climate change, global warming, the negative effects of things like fracking, which is becoming a bit of an issue. They want to be able to allow entities like the Koch brothers to be able to continue to provide huge war chests for extreme conservatives to be able to get in, and allow the Koch brothers to continue making disastrous decisions for the people of America with their business and through their funding of stupid, gullible Republicans. Not that there aren't stupid, gullible Democrats. I mean, I'm not an American, I'm not a US citizen, I'm not entitled to a vote in the American elections, but whether we like it or not, and I don't, but whether we like it or not, American politics does have an impact on world politics, and quite often Western Europe will follow where the US leads. Quite often it won't. A lot of Western Europe has signed up the Kyoto Protocol, which was the first step towards real change in a real effort in fighting global climate change. The Americans won't sign up to it because it affects their oil business, because it requires people to start investigating alternative fuels, and the Americans don't want that. They are a nation they cling to their cars as closely as they cling to their guns. Now, I love cars. I love driving. I like driving fast. I'm playing a driving game, for crying out loud. When I'm not driving in real life, I'm driving virtually in computers, and I don't just drive on this laptop. I also drive on my PS3 with the 2 Gran Turismo games. I've got World Rally Championship 3, I've got F1's 10, 11, 12. I've got Grid 1 and 2. I've got quite a few driving games. So driving is a thing I love doing. However, I am not, while I love the sound of a nice throaty V8 or V6, I like the sound of an engine, it's the sensation of speed more than the sound that attracts me to driving. Going fast, making that corner, hitting that apex. And I can live with the aesthetic beauty of a car and the speed that it provides without necessarily hearing the noise. And if necessary, we can make the sound inside the car. It is getting to the point where I think we have to start thinking about giving electric cars an artificial noise. When I'm back in London where I work, a lot of the taxis on that particular road use the Toyota Prius. I don't particularly like the Prius, and I don't think it's particularly environmentally friendly. I mean, for crying out loud, it gets its electricity from fossil fuel burning electric power stations. But they are amazingly quiet, and I have nearly been run over on a couple of occasions by a Prius that I couldn't hear. So I think we are at the stage where we possibly need to start adding maybe a bit of noise, a bit of artificial noise to electric cars so that pedestrians can hear them. American politics is very heavily weighted towards oil, it's very heavily weighted towards pharmaceuticals, it's heavily weighted towards American farmers, it's massively weighted towards the American cotton industry. A huge chunk, I think it's something like 70 or 80% of the world's cotton comes from the US, and the reason it does is because the American government gives such an enormous subsidy to American cotton farmers that it's almost impossible to buy cotton from anywhere else at the price. American cotton is so cheap that it's impossible to compete. And in fact, Brazilian cotton farmers threatened the American government, which at the time they started doing it didn't make much difference. Brazil was a small economic nation, but it's actually one of the fastest growing economies in the world, along with India and China. There's another one, Russia. And suddenly it became economically powerful enough that it could threaten to block imports if the Americans didn't stop providing the subsidy. Well, the American government can't afford to stop providing the subsidy. They would lose, whichever government did that would lose at the next election, because there are a significant number of farmers, and also people want to buy cheap t-shirts. Nobody wants to spend $30 on a t-shirt when we can buy them at the moment for $10 US. I mean, I think it's $9. It's not actually, to be honest, it's £10 in the UK. We do get a bit ripped off. I've got to be honest. In the UK, we get a bit ripped off, and you really get ripped off in New Zealand and Australia. But in fairness to distributors, New Zealand and Australia are an awful long way away from the rest of the world. So what the American government had to do was it had to pay a bribe. It has to pay a bribe annually to the Brazilian cotton industry to prevent the Brazilian government, from banning imports from American companies. In the UK, we are probably coming up on an election cycle in the next year or two, and so people are starting to be mean about one another. There's a moronic little party called the UK Independence Party. They are anti-Europe. Essentially, that's their platform. They're anti-Europe. They hate Europe in all of its forms. They don't want Britain to be part of Europe. It's the single most short-sighted, moronic platform that any UK party can have. We are part of Europe. We're in Europe. We're part of the European Union. We're part of NATO, which is we're part of the EU. Okay, we're not part of the European Monetary Unit yet, but we bloody well should be. We would provide a tremendous amount of stability. It would provide a tremendous amount of stability for our businesses exporting to Western Europe. It would help our GDP. It would mean that we didn't have to make currency exchanges when we went on holiday to Europe. It would make it easier for Europeans to come to the UK without having to get pounds. There are few logical reasons preventing us. Ironically, one of the few reasons was the 2008 financial meltdown. It did actually, not being part of the EMU, did slightly insulate us a little bit, and it also meant that we weren't required. Because we're not part of the European Bank, we're not part of the European Monetary Unit, we weren't as obliged to help Greece and Spain and Portugal out of their financial woes. We did, however, pump a lot of money into Ireland. Ireland is a significant trade partner, and we needed to make sure they didn't go belly up. The reason being, we wanted our businesses to not go belly up. And some of them would without that Irish market, that necessary Irish market. So it made economic sense for us to support Ireland. It would have made economic sense for us to support Spain and Portugal if we were in the EMU, and it would have spread the pain amongst another nation. And I know a lot of UKIP politicians are saying, well, we didn't have to do that. Frankly, we should have. We should have done it. We should have helped support, because if one nation in Europe goes down, we all suffer. We cannot be short-sighted about this. Oh, sugar. Oh, my little truck got a scrape because I was going too fast. So the UK Independence Party, I kind of hope it dies and withers. They're having an awful lot of problems. Nigel Farage is their leader, and he's an idiot. But he's got a significant number of idiots in his party, and one chap in particular really dropped the ball recently. I can't remember his name, and I don't really want to give him the oxygen of publicity, but he is an idiot. He's sexist, racist, and to be honest, the UK Independence Party is a thickly disguised platform for racism. It's the more acceptable version of the BNP. BNP is the British National Party. They're vile, revolting, horrifying, homophobic, and more particularly nastily racist little cabal of rotten scumbags and crap. Oh no, didn't want to do that. So I've done it again. And I had slowed down in time, and I decided no, I didn't need to because everything was moving. I need to fail to realise that the guy I crashed into was in fact turning, and was going to stay stood. Right, I need to get rested soon. I think I've also got to pause the video because I am about to run out of space in a little bit on my phone. Oh, I long for the day when I don't have to worry about this. It's coming. The day is coming. I think I've almost decided on the little portable AverMedia one. It plugs into a USB socket in my laptop. It controls all. It has its own processor for processing the video footage, so it doesn't affect the. It doesn't use up CPU on the laptop. And I can use it with my PS3, and I'll be able to use it with my PS4, which is kind of what I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, when I get my massive rig, I will have an internal video capture card which will siphon the footage to a separate drive. Because what will happen with this portable one is it record to an SD card, and then I'll have to plonk the SD card back into the computer and transfer the footage off the SD card so that I can make another journey. So I'll still have to do the transfer of footage, but I won't have to do that transfer during the journey. I will only have to do it afterwards. But that will not be until I'm back in the UK. So, yes, UKIP, BNP, revolting, and they're in the news at the moment for one reason or another. Okay, this is a bit of a risk, but it's a risk that paid off. I have not had to queue, which is awesome. I am going to get a fine for being on the wrong side of the road at some point. I'm not sure, but I think it's cumulative. Oh, there's a train. Glad I spotted that train, because I don't think I would have been able to stop in time. Okay, now it's going to let me out. That's good. It's going to let me in, sorry. The I say big three. The big two and the minor one is the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. They're the two that have predominantly been duking it out. There's also the Liberal Party, but the Liberal Party haven't been in power since before World War II. For reasons that I cannot explain. We are becoming more liberal as a nation in our daily lives, but it seems like we're becoming more and more extreme in our politics. I am a very proud liberal. I believe in ploughing the middle ground. I believe that an idea isn't invalid just because it came from the other side of the aisle. I believe in good ideas no matter where they come from, and I believe in that we should be looking after people, that we should be taking care of ourselves and our children and the planet, and as such it's irrelevant where an idea came from. And in politics it seems like that's not a particularly powerful message. You have to be very extreme, you have to be very pro-business or very pro-socialism. You can't be one of... Oh, we have a rest stop. I'm going to pull in here. Well, I think actually Ah, there we go. Alright, engine off. And I'm going to rest. Alright, I'm going to pause the recording here, upload the footage, and I'll be back momentarily. Okay, we are rested. I've moved the footage. Let's get some fuel. Alright, £357 for 247.92 litres. Let's blow this popsicle stand. So we've done 11 hours out of our 33. This is going to be a long journey. I wondered why I couldn't see what was going on. Look at that, we're up to 4 million. Oh no! Why are we suddenly going the wrong way? Well, what have we done? That wasn't too bad. I missed a turning. That's fine. Right. This is a bit of road that we haven't discovered, so that's fine by me. It takes us a little bit out of our way. We've got 43 hours to do this, 22 hours remaining. We've got time for another rest, which we are almost certainly going to need. So we can do this. Okay. So British politics at the moment is a sort of a fight between the right wing and the left wing, between the commercially obsessed and the socially obsessed. And I think that politics needs to be somewhere in between. We need the commercial enterprises and the commercial desires in order to be able to afford the social projects and programs. And I think that's obvious, as the Soviets found out. It's all very well having this Soviet ideal, but if you can't pay for it, it's worthless. And they couldn't. So I think it's not just that. I think that caused the downfall of the Soviet Union. The downfall of the Soviet Union was because so many people were able to get out and say, look, this is wonderful. We've got freedom. We can do what we want. We can say what we want. People aren't going to talk about us to the authorities because we have an opinion, and having an opinion is vital, but it's not as vital as voting. People who don't vote make me so angry. If you do not vote, you have absolutely no right to complain about the political situation. You voted for someone who's not doing what you want, you vote him out. And if it's a long time to wait for him to vote out, you write to him, and you get your friends to write to him, and anybody else that disagrees with what he's currently doing. It's the way democracy works. They know that if they want to get re-elected, they've got to do what you want them to do. Now, of course, that requires an intelligent and socially minded electorate, voting on things that actually matter rather than not voting for moronic, selfish issues. A case in point, when I lived in Bristol, there was a vote on whether the rates were going to go down, go up, or stay as they are. Everyone voted for the rates to go down. The following government had to raise the rateable value of people's property by so much that it really hurt people, and it had to go up by that much because the council couldn't afford to make the promises that it made based on the available money it had to it. So people are stupid. I voted. I wasn't entirely selfless. I voted to keep it. Ugh, no. Somehow I've managed to avoid doing any damage to my load, but I keep doing damage to my lorry. I voted to keep the rates at the value they were, rather than up, because they were going to put them up by quite a lot. I can't remember what it was all about. It was all about doing something in particular that they wanted to do, but it was going to cost this amount of money, and they were trying to force people to be selfless, and it backfired. And they got voted out when people discovered how much it cost. £4. Wow. Where are we? Poland? Actually, where are we? Lille was still in France. Okay, why was that so cheap when we were in France? So we're going to go through Belgium. We're going to go through Germany. And then we're going to go into Poland. That's how we're doing this. So we've still got a long way to go. As I was saying, it needs a socially aware and an intelligent electorate who know what's what. But then, conversely, they also need to be well informed. They need to be given the information in order to be well informed. And the trouble with politics is that politicians don't want to present accurate information. They want to present information that best helps their case. So, and it's not possible for a politician to avoid that trap, because they avoid that trap, they won't get elected. There's no point in being a politician if you're not going to be elected. You need to be elected in order to make change. You need to be elected in order to help people, if that's what your aim is about. And if you're the only person being honest, you're the only person that's not going to get a single vote, because no one's going to vote for you, because because people have an inherent distrust of politicians, and they're going to assume that you're giving the best case scenario. And if you're presenting the worst case scenario, people are going to assume that it's the worst it can be. Sadly, I think the only way to survive in politics is to lie your arse off. It's the only way to stay in politics, so I don't know. So the Liberals aren't really relevant, and unfortunately the current Liberal leadership have completely destroyed all possible credibility that the Liberal Party have ever had. Nick Clegg isn't the Deputy Prime Minister, and he's a Liberal, and he has abandoned most of the principles that he was elected on, because he saw the chance to be part of the government. And so he's had his chance at being part of the government, but in doing so he's shot the Liberal Party in the foot. And that's all there is to it. There we go. Now New Zealand, they've got a similar structure. Their version of the Conservatives or the Republicans is the National Party, but it's not quite as gung-ho. They have a Labour Party, which is, I guess, the equivalent of the Democrat Party, and their equivalent of the Liberals is the Greens. The Americans don't have a third party, they have a two-party system. I don't know. I kind of see where some of the politicians, particularly I think it was Madison, was saying that a multi-party system would fail. It's currently failing in the United States. It's a Democratic president, but it's a Republican Congress, and he can't get anything. He struggles to get anything done. He struggles to get any legislation through without the Republicans skewering it. Another way that American politicians can kill a bill that they don't want is to add some legislation to it that would be particularly unpopular and unpalatable for the person who's sponsoring the bill as it is. I don't understand how that's allowed to happen. It doesn't make any sense to me that you present a bill for one particular issue and they can load it with other issues. That's just moronic. Each bill should be a separate entity. It shouldn't have attachments to it for different issues. It would be a way of preventing people from destroying destroying legislation they don't agree with. Minorities, minority legislation, a majority legislation that a minority doesn't agree with. So, for instance, the Affordable Care Act. They're constantly trying to kill it. They've made dozens of attempts to repeal it. One particular nutjob, Ted Cruz, C-R-U-Z, an ethnic Mexican from Canada who is people are touting as a Republican, people were touting as a Republican shoo-in for 2016. He filibustered. Filibustered is one of the stupid ideas that only lives and survives in America. You prevent a bill from being voted on by just talking, and you refuse to yield. I'm sorry, I've got a very phlegmy and sticky throat. I'm still suffering the last remaining few after effects of the cold I had in Melbourne, which didn't really affect me a great deal in Melbourne. But then I wasn't doing YouTube videos while I was in Melbourne, so my voice could be as throaty and as phlegmy as it wanted to be, without concerning me. So we're a little bit behind, but we should make up some time on our journey. Hopefully we're on a long, straight, multi-lane road, which means we'll be able to overtake slow-moving traffic. The longer we're on that, the better. It means that I don't get stuck behind vehicles, which means that I don't lose time. Doesn't always work. Sometimes you get one slow car overtaking another slow car, and you're a little bit stuffed. But nonetheless. And we're opened up. Good. I was a bit worried that we were down to a single lane on this road, but it seems we're okay. So we've got a British government that recently sold off Royal Mail. I can't be more angry about this. I really couldn't. It's a service which is dying. They didn't want it. They didn't want to pay for it, so they set a price for it which was ridiculously low, and then they flogged it off, and within 3 days it had doubled in price. So the British taxpayer lost a shitload of money, and most of the people that would have bought this were not small private investors like the likes of you and me. These are big corporate entities that are making millions and millions of pounds of something that the UK taxpayer has paid for and built up to where it is today. It makes me so angry. It's one of these things. We need it. We need it to be as it is. We need the Royal Mail to be required to deliver to every postal address in the United Kingdom. A private enterprise will not feel obliged to uphold that requirement. In fact, I think probably one of the first things they'll do is they will get rid of that requirement. It's deeply frustrating. It's a situation that will be. I truly hope that when a more sensible government comes back in charge, Labour or a newly found Liberal Party, that they nationalise it. The postal service should never be a private enterprise. It's one of those things that's expensive to run, and it shouldn't be made to feel like it has to make a profit. It should be a service provided. When I left the United Kingdom, 47 pence to send. Was it 47? Might have been 48 pence. Less than £1 to send a letter from one end of the country to the other. Next day. Private business will not feel obliged to do that. They will not feel obliged. They will not feel obliged to go to the Outer Hebrides and the Scilly Isles. They won't feel obliged to send a letter from one corner of our nation to the other in 24 hours. Oh, sorry, by the next morning. They just won't feel obliged to. I think it's 12 hours. Yeah, it's 12 hours. 6 o'clock is usually. 5:30 is usually the last post for first class mail. You put it in at 5:30, and people get it on in their postbox. Now, Royal Mail has been slipping and slipping and slipping. When I was a kid, all mail was delivered twice a day. You had a morning delivery, which was done usually it was done by 7 a.m. and you had an afternoon delivery, which was done by 1 p.m. And it was cheap and it was reliable. And first class was always there next day, and second class was always there the following day. First class nowadays is usually there, but it's usually by lunchtime. There is no second post, and second class, sometimes it comes next day, sometimes it doesn't come for 3 or 4 days. It's just I don't know. But yes, the Tories did try when they first came in 2010, I think it was. They did try to privatise the National Health Service. They tried to do it twice, and were rebuffed by the electorate. They also tried to relax the Greenbelt rules. I think I might have explained this before in a previous video, but for those of you who can't be bothered searching through it, because I don't think I've labelled it on any of the videos. The Greenbelt is this large area around London where building regulations are extraordinarily restrictive. You're not allowed to build. To be honest, you're almost not allowed to build anything, including a shed. The laws are incredibly strict, and the reason being is that London is a massive urban area. There are these green areas remaining around London needed to be protected, because London was expanding at a rate which was frightening, and it needed to be halted. It was unnecessary. everyone was moving to London because that's where all the work was, and you were getting into a situation. We were very close to getting into a situation like New Zealand. New Zealand has a population of, I keep saying this, 4.2 million people. 1/3 of the population of New Zealand lives in Auckland. It's not the capital city. It was the capital city until the South Island made murmurings about leaving, becoming an independent nation, and then they shifted to Wellington, which is still North Island but close enough to the South Island. I think it kind of appeased the South Islanders a little bit. I don't think the South Island was ever serious about becoming an independent nation. I don't see how it possibly could. 4.2 million people, and 1/3 of that population lives in Auckland. The population is supposed to rise to about 5 million people in the next 2 years. They reckon that half the population is going to be in Auckland. Half, 2.5 million people in one city. Half the population in one city. That's just astonishing. The United Kingdom was going that way. People were all moving to London, so they stuck this green belt in. They stuck these restrictive laws in. There are probably more important, more crucial reasons why they did it, but it's one of the reasons that I was aware of. The Tories tried to relax it because they want people building, they want people spending money. The thing is, in London there are so many brownfield sites, and by brownfield sites I mean a derelict site that's unused or a building that's not being used properly. There are so many of these brownfield sites that they should be using first before they start cutting grass and trees down, cutting up grass and chopping down trees. But it's cheaper and easier to use a greenfield site than it is to use a brownfield site, unless of course there are massive regulations protecting that greenfield site, and then it becomes financially impractical. The other problem, the other reason why builders don't want to use brownfield sites in London is, the other two reasons, there are still unexploded ordnance from World War II being discovered on a daily basis in London. My wife was a geologist, worked for a company that did ground investigation for people before they started building, and they were regularly finding unexploded ordnance when they were drilling holes in the ground to see what was where. Another reason is that they don't want to run into the risk of finding historical buildings underneath their building site. It's very disruptive and it's expensive, and it sometimes means they can't build there, or it means they can't build the building they wanted to build. They've got to build something massively compromised. A prime example was the discovery of the Rose Theatre. It was one of the theatres that Shakespeare used before the Globe was built. Oh, crap. Yeah, bye-bye, excellent. Fuck. Whoa, 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 whoa. I don't understand what happened there. I think the guy drove into me. Oh, no, no, no. Okay, I'm having a shit run now. Distracted by the crash. I didn't see the off-ramp quickly enough. Fuck. Fudge. Fuxicle. Frack, smeg, and other such fake expletives. We've done 2/3 of the journey without hitting anything, and then well, not quite 2/3 of the journey. We're 2 hours after. That makes me so angry. I think I'm going to review the footage. I don't know where I am in this, but I'm going to review the footage and see. If I can find that incident and stare at the footage to see if I can make it not be my fault. Oh. Yes, so the Rose Theatre they were excavating for a very tall office building, and while they were pulling up the foundations, they discovered the Rose Theatre. Oh, you're kidding me! What? Okay, that was both our faults. I'm going to stick to that opinion. I don't care if I'm wrong. While they were digging the foundations for this skyscraper, they discovered that, well, it was not really a skyscraper, something like 20 or 30 stories, which doesn't really qualify as a skyscraper, but there you go. While they were excavating the foundations, they discovered the Rose Theatre. There was a great movement to protect the foundations, and the architect of the original building was forced by public opinion and then ultimately government legislation to find a solution so that they could still build the building without destroying the Rose Theatre, which is what they've done. They came up with a very ingenious way of protecting the Rose Theatre. Now, given that it's in London, seismic activities at a minimum, it was quite an easy fix to do. They couldn't have done this fix in New Zealand. They'd have had to have abandoned the building, because there's no way they could have made there's no way they could have made the fix work with seismic activity and that particular type of foundation. Essentially, they've created a metal framework for the building to sit on that sits over the Rose Theatre, so that you can't. They are they've been in a long process. They discovered in the 80s. We're at 2014 now. So 20-30 years, and they're slowly, bit by bit, they are protecting the foundations so that we can see them properly. A lot of it's underwater at the moment because the materials involved need to be protected. Obviously, it's a wood building. It was a wood and the only bits remaining are the wooden foundations and the stone. So the wooden framework, in the stone that surrounded the bottom of the frame of the building. And the wood needs to remain soaked in water, because if it dries out, it'll become excessively brittle, and that'll be the end of it. It'll fall apart. If you're familiar with the Mary Rose, which was a boat that was lifted out of the Solent, which is the body of water between the south coast between sort of Portsmouth, Southampton, and the Isle of Wight, it's been soaked in a resin, and it has been since 1983 or 84, I think it was, when they pulled it out of the water. And I think in a couple of years' time, it'll be protected enough from not being soaked. They've essentially been spraying the thing in resin for 30 years, non-stop, keeping it in that resin atmosphere so that it doesn't become brittle and fall apart. Yes, that is another of the issues that frightens developers, is the potential what's underneath the brownfield site that they're going to build on, because obviously nowadays they're building taller buildings, which means the foundations need to be deeper, and when they go deeper, here's a rest stop that I haven't visited. Might as well not lose too much. But I will lose some time. But it's an extra percentage, it's an extra part of the map that I hadn't discovered, and I have now. I love it. So that's why developers are frightened of brownfield sites. Sometimes they don't care. In Reading there is a shopping centre called the Oracle, and it has a car park. The car park used to be the historic bus station, the omnibus station. The developers were told in no uncertain terms that they were not allowed to pull that building down, that they had to rework it. They presented fake plans that looked like they were going to rework the building, and then they just knocked it down and started throwing up the new building. And when it was knocked down, they destroyed the material, so they were unable to rebuild it. It backfired. I believe they were sued so much money that by the council that they didn't end up actually making any money out of the construction of the Oracle Centre, and in fact, the new company had to take over the money of it because the company that built it was bankrupted by the action. Knocking down a list. It happens occasionally. Someone. I remember 10 years ago there was a chap was charged when he knocked down a listed cottage because it was in his way. He wanted to build his nice big house. He bought a plot of land, thought he'd be able to knock the cottages down. When he bought the land, he was contacted by the local authorities who told him, oh, by the way, you can't touch those cottages. And those cottages sat right where he was about to I think part of his house was going to be across the footprint of one of the cottages. He went ahead and knocked it down anyway, started building his house, and the council made him pull the house down. There was another case of a chap building in the green belt, and there's a rule that if no one complains about your building for 2 years in the greenfield site, then you get to keep it up. So he built this huge hay box, built the house inside this sort of big square hay thing, so it was obscured, and then they lived in this hay square for 2 years, and then once the 2 years had passed, he pulled the hay down, and the council said, no, people have got to be able to see it so they can complain about it. So he was made to pull that house down. Good. There's a greenfield site. It's a greenfield for a reason. The green belt is a green belt for a reason. Sorry, not greenfield. It's there so that we have some grass, some trees, some wildflowers. We've got somewhere for wild animals like voles and badgers and foxes to live unmolested. It's Oh, we need another rest. Right, let's check the map out. Yep, we got another rest spot coming. So we are going to be crossing into Germany. Sorry, no, we're in Germany. Sorry, we've been in Germany a while. Okay. Wow. Okay, cool. No, that's good. Just looking at how much of that map is golden. Wonderful. Right, we got a rest spot coming up, so we'll rest there soon. And I will probably look to take the footage off. Okay. Okay, I haven't used that main road that I'm just about to drive over before. That's an interesting road that I need to explore at some point, somehow. So yes, that was the Tory government's, two of the Tory governments have failed attempts at circumventing public will. Small minority of people who want to build a house, people who want to construct offices, developers that want to put in new housing, or create industrial complexes for people to put factories and warehouses. They want the greenbelt gone because they want virgin greenfield sites that they don't have to do too much work in order to prepare them for building. The public don't. The public like the fact that there's this area of greenery surrounding this, one of the world's largest cities. I mean, it's not even close to the largest city anymore. I think that's Mumbai. I think Mumbai's got 1 billion people. Well, no, 800 million. It's a huge amount. Mumbai is the most densely populated, probably the highest, and probably got the highest population of any city in the world, I believe. Mumbai used to be called Calcutta. When the British left, the Indians quite rightly went round and started renaming stuff. As was their one. Alright, this is our rest stop. I nearly missed that. Ooh, it's one we haven't visited before as well. I like it. Let's just top up with a little bit of petrol, because you can never be too careful. And we're not doing too badly. Okay, £412 for 282.19 litres. Let's go and bung it in a parking space. Alrighty. So I'm going to pause it here, upload the footage, and I'll be back in a moment. Right, let's get on with this. So New Zealand politics seems to be significantly more petty. They don't have as many broader issues to argue over. When they do have a broad issue, they tend to get excited about it. There seems to be more consensus. The disagreements tend to be over smaller things, and it tends to sound daft to a Western ear when we're arguing about disarmament with the Soviets, and we're arguing about whether our health service needs to be nationalised or privatised, when we're arguing about climate change, and we're arguing about whether we should maintain closer ties with Europe, or whether we should abandon those ties and go to and become isolationist. When we're having those discussions, and New Zealand politicians are talking about whether someone had a meal with someone else or not, whether someone spoke to someone from a different political persuasion or not, it just sounds a little bit small, or a little bit juvenile. These things may be terribly important, I don't know, but they just sound more juvenile. New Zealand is undoubtedly a pretty country. There isn't as much to do. It's, as I've repeatedly said, it's landmass-wise, it's slightly larger than the United Kingdom. However, I would guess that in terms of usable, livable space, significantly smaller. It's home to the Southern Alps, which are pretty much the spine of the whole South Island. There's large mountain areas in the North Island, most notably for international viewers of this site. Mount Doom from the Lord of the Rings movies is a huge mountain which Peter Jackson used. That's smack in the middle of the North Island, south of Rotorua. Rotorua, or Rotorua as it's correctly pronounced, is the city in New Zealand that has this rather sulphurous odour. It's got little tiny geysers and pits with this where the water is superheating the ground is superheated, and you've got these formations, and it's got warm natural springs that are heated. So yes, so it is a landmass of incredibly diverse geological formations. It's quite pretty. If you're an outdoorsy person, it's probably one of the places to live. It's got everything, perfect conditions for things like surfing, paragliding, parachuting, wakeboarding, snowboarding, skiing, climbing, mountaineering, potholing, mountain biking, hiking, riding. Yeah, I mean, if there's an outdoor activity you want to do, New Zealand is well positioned to provide the opportunity to do so. It's got two glaciers, Fox Glacier and Franz Josef Glacier, which are retreating, and it's becoming more and more difficult to see them, but it's the sort of thing, I mean, a glacier moves. That's what happens. It's sad, when my wife left New Zealand in 2000. Excuse me. Oh, trying not to sneeze too loudly, I don't want to deafen you guys. When she left New Zealand, where we were stood, looking at the glacier in the distance, she would have been stood on the glacier, and it's now reached a point where it's a little bit inaccessible. If we'd had the money, we would have helicoptered onto it. We almost certainly would have helicoptered onto it. Oh, excuse me. I've got a sneeze fest going on. It was fascinating. We hiked quite a bit in to have a look at them, two of them. They're on the South Island, on the west coast, sort of middle of the west coast of the South Island. I was disappointed, actually. I wanted to take a bag of Fox's Glacier mints and stand on Fox Glacier holding a Glacier mint, but we couldn't get to it. We just couldn't get to it. It was between weather conditions and its distance. It wasn't possible for us to stand on Fox Glacier and I didn't have any Fox's Glacier mints with me anyway, so. But no, it is beautiful. But I, as you might have gathered by the fact that I am indoors playing a game, I'm an indoorsy person. I like indoorsy stuff. The outdoors is cold and miserable and uncomfortable and damp and unfriendly and full of horrible people and dangerous animals and traffic. It's a nasty, horrible place that I don't like to be outside unless I'm in a vehicle. So yes, the outdoors can naff off as far as I'm concerned. So I'm a big fan of cities. I like cities. Cities are much more hospitable. I mean, they're dangerous, but they're a different kind of dangerous. And the danger is usually you can mitigate it if you're sensible. But no, I'm a city boy. I was born in a city. Every time I've been forced to live in a town or a village, I've been unhappy. When I've been living in a city, my spirits are raised. Apart from Christchurch, as a city, when it was in all its glory, it was probably great. Probably a great place to live. But it hasn't been in all its former glory since 2011. It's taken a significant battering, and it's not the same city anymore, and unfortunately, sadly, the people aren't the same people anymore. They are sad, they're unhappy, they're angry, and they're living in a concrete wasteland. Very little vegetation has grown back. All the trees that fell over have died. When stuff gets replanted, it takes a long time to take root, and the buildings that were there are not there anymore. It's not a colourful town. It is mostly the colour of concrete as they're rebuilding it. Now, having lived here for nearly a year, we will certainly come back to Christchurch. We've liked it. The people that we've grown friendly with, we've enjoyed meeting them. We've made friends. But I want to come back in 5 years' time and see whether the city has properly rebuilt itself, because it does look like a building site at the moment. And the people feel like they're living in a building site, and it brings them down. The whole city has a very, I don't want to say negative, because that's not the right adjective. It's unhappy, melancholy. It's a very melancholy city. And as I've stated in the video when I was talking about how a mass event like an earthquake has a significant psychological impact on people, the people still, we've been here. It's been nearly 4 years. It's been 4 years since the earthquake. 3 years since the earthquake. People still want to talk about the earthquake. When you talk to them, the conversations will still end up being about this earthquake that they lived through, and it's part of who they are, and you can't blame them. This was their life, and they're still living through it, and it won't be until the city's been rebuilt and they're not dealing with insurance companies on a daily basis about their homes, and the roads have been fully repaired, and infrastructure is back, and you're not driving through a city of cones. I mean, it could be described as a city of cones and concrete. If a building's not, if they're not rebuilding a building, they're rebuilding the road, or they're digging up the road to rebuild the sewerage systems, or it's they've had a significant battering, and they're still living through the after effects of that battering. It's been periodically nice to go to a city that isn't struggling with that. It was nice to go and spend a week in Melbourne. It's nice periodically to go and spend some time in Auckland. It's nice. Yeah, we don't care about speeding offences. It's nice to periodically. We've been exploring the South Island of New Zealand a little bit, and it's been nice to do that because they're not suffering the after effects of the earthquake like Christchurch is. Although they did feel the rumble. I mean, it was a major event. So most people, because it's the centre of the, it's relatively thin. I mean, it's like 4 hours from coast to coast, 5 hours from coast to coast. People in Dunedin felt it, the people in Blenheim felt it, the people in Greymouth felt it. They felt it all over the South Island. In a minor way, they felt a little bit of a rumble. Not the kind of aftershocks that I've been experiencing, but they felt them. And this is the other problem is in the 2 years after the earthquake, citizens of Christchurch have suffered 22,000 aftershocks. They've steadily been getting quieter and quieter and more infrequent, but they're still happening. I felt my first earthquake 7 months into being in New Zealand, and then in the space of probably 4 weeks I felt another 3, and I didn't really feel another one again until last week, until the weekend that's just gone. Sunday they had a 4.2. And I happened to be over at a friend's house who's got a large collection of CDs, and the CDs rattled like hell for for 10-15 seconds while this thing rumbled. These things are still happening. They're constant reminders of what's happened. Every time they have an aftershock, it's like a reminder of the major event that happened in 2011. Right, we're quite near our destination. So yes, there's been a lot of political wrangling about the earthquake. They actually have an earthquake minister in New Zealand, because they do get periodic earthquakes. They had quite a bad one in Seddon, which did cause some minor damage to buildings in Wellington at the end of last year, which worried a lot of people. Because earthquakes have become a feature. I mean, not become. They've had earthquakes for quite a while. The town of Napier, they're sort of on the east coast of the North Island, suffered a massive earthquake which pretty much destroyed the city, and they had to rebuild it in the 1920s. And so it's actually a very beautiful example of an Art Deco city. It was a city that was built from scratch in the 1920s, and they just went with the Art Deco style. Now this was an opportunity for Christchurch, but we live in very different times, and as I suspected, a lot of the buildings that are going up in Christchurch are glass boxes. I wouldn't want to be in a glass box or walking by a glass box if there's another earthquake. But these are the decisions that are being made, and one can only hope that the legislation that they introduced is being adhered to. Bear in mind, two of the buildings that suffered most catastrophically because of this earthquake were buildings that were built by people that were either built not using the correct legislation, or in one case were built by someone who didn't have the qualifications that were required to design the building that he designed. So one can only hope that legislation is being observed, and building codes and building standards are being observed, and materials that are being used are the materials that should be being used, and that they're not cutting corners all over the place when they're reconstructing these buildings. Some of the buildings are interesting. One of the construction companies that's heavily involved in rebuilding in Christchurch have built their own offices, and it's actually quite an interesting building. Now, while it is a glass box, it's a glass box that's been dealt with in a more interesting way. I believe. Look at the size of the moon in the back, in a mirror, in the mirror on the right. For some reason it's huge. Is it the mirror? Isn't it the moon? Or is it a giant cloud? It might be a giant cloud, actually. So politics is one of those things. It's the quality of politics in a country is dependent on the people involved in it. New Zealand is a small country with small country issues, and so its politics are exactly that. The UK is a former international powerhouse that's trying to measure up to its past, and so its politics are reflected that. It's constantly trying to get itself involved in international issues. We regularly, as a nation, are involved in what I would refer to as international police actions. Obviously, sometimes we shouldn't be in £11. It's not bad. Obviously, I believe we shouldn't be in them. I don't believe that the justification that they offered for invading Iraq under George W. Bush in 2002 or 2003. That wasn't a good enough reason. It wasn't the truth for a start. There were reasons to go in. They were perfectly valid reasons. If they'd used those reasons, I would have been fine with it. But what they used was some made-up nonsense about weapons of mass destruction, which absolutely came and bit them in the arse later on. And George W. Bush and Tony Blair can be considered war criminals, and the French and Germans who refused to participate, who George W. Bush insultingly referred to as old Europe. I don't think it's much of an insult, to be quite honest. Turned out to be absolutely spot on. Those were not good enough reasons to invade a sovereign nation. Now, if George H. Bush had the courage of his convictions, W wouldn't have felt himself able to go in. H had the chance to get rid of Hussein during the first Gulf War. He should have done it. He should absolutely have finished the job he started. They just came off like bullies because they were showing precision bombings of tanks and it just looked like a massive superpower. The Americans started to look like schoolyard bullies. And so he chickened out. What they should have done is they got rid of him and then completely rebuilt the infrastructure in Iraq. They should have rebuilt the infrastructure and schools, networks, the electricity networks, power, plumbing in the 1980s when they helped the Mujahideen boot the Russians out of Afghanistan. Had they done that, the Taliban might not have felt as confident about establishing themselves as the ruling religious power in Afghanistan, and then Afghan women might still be driving and going to school and flying in aeroplanes and walking around in public without hiding all but their eyes. It's a sad situation. Oh, there's a song. Americans always seem to have a great plan for war and never any kind of plan for peace. They did it in the 80s in Afghanistan. They did it in Vietnam. They never won the hearts and minds of the locals in Vietnam. They didn't do it in the second Gulf War. They've not done it in Afghanistan. They've constantly caused problems for their allies. In Britain, we would take over an area that the Americans had been controlling, and it would take weeks for the locals to realise that we're not American and that we were not going to behave in the moronic, xenophobic way that the American troops were behaving. Tim Collins, who was CEO for the Irish regiment, who gave a famous speech that was republished repeatedly, and then was erroneously accused by an idiot American of war crimes, exonerated, but felt he couldn't. He wrote an excellent book about how they struggled to deal with a post-American occupation, because that's essentially what happens when American troops roll in. It becomes an occupation. When the British troops are there, it's very much like the British troops were very keen to make it clear that we were there to help them and protect them, and they were there to protect them from the Taliban and from the insurgents, and we were there to help the country regain its democratic future. Democracy is not for everyone, certainly not for the Taliban, and certainly not for people who are frightened of women, as the Taliban seem to be. The Taliban are frightened, scared witless of women. You shouldn't be. Women are people. They're 50% of the genders. Half the population. And if you exclude them, you lose so much. It doesn't make sense to exclude women. It simply doesn't. I don't understand why you would think it was a good idea to exclude women. Oh, I am very much in favour of women and men working together as one. What I'm not in favour of is we've discovered Krakow. I'm not in favour of the sort of reverse sexism that a lot of extreme feminists are promoting. It's essentially that it's trying to right a wrong with another wrong, and two wrongs never make a right. Stuff it. I'm going through. I'm going to do. Let's just double check because I'm going. Wow. So I have now only got 3 cities in Poland left to discover. So let's look at Krakow. Where are we? I think I will just deal with this bit, so I just need to do a loop. This bit just might take just a bit too long and might be a bit boring. And I'm already aware that I'm closing in on a 2-hour journey. Oh, shit. I don't know where my brain was there. Thankfully, you just bounce off that. You don't. Phew. That was silly. I've done that twice now. Actually, all of my bad driving decisions are happening just lately. It seems to me, yeah, that a lot of my bad driving choices and careless driving seems to have been happening recently. More recruitment, more drivers, yay! And a man truck dealership, which I'm guessing is where we get our vehicle. No, it's not where we get our vehicle repaired. I'm guessing that's a small truck dealership then. If we can't get our vehicle repaired at a dealership, it's usually because it's a small one. That's where we'll get our truck fixed at the beginning of the next video. Alright, let's get this load in. Let's give it a wide swing. That's not the way I want to go. Right, I have been playing Scania Truck Driving Simulator. Very easy. And it's part of its purpose is to help try and make you a better driver. It's obviously, as you can see, it's not really been working yet. There we are. But we did get in almost one go. That's not bad. So, parking brake on, engine off. Let's see what we got. Good work. Well, yep, we did clip a car and that cost us our excellent. Right, so driven distance. Yeah, 2%. It went from 1% to 2% Driven distance 2,099 kilometers. Time taken 43 hours and 42 minutes. Fuel consumed 725 liters. Base reward of £56,745 and 2,099 XP. Proficiency bonus for level 31 of £26,386. Long distance delivery bonus for skill rank 5 of £14,036 and 524 XP. High value cargo bonus for skill rank 5 of £14,036 and 377 XP. And guess what? The urgent delivery bonus for skill rank 5 was in pounds. It was 14,036. But we got 629 XP for that one. So our parking bonus was 45 XP, which we needed because we caused 2% damage, and the penalty for that was £284 and 21 XP. We got a whopping £124,975, and we got an enormous 3,653 XP for that journey. So that took a huge bite out of level 31. So this profile has a lifetime XP of 112,443, and we're aiming still for level 32 at 113,300 XP. So we're in Krakow in Poland, just in case you're wondering, I read all these figures out because having watched a few of the videos, it's not massively clear, and I have enough trouble reading these figures on the screen that I can see. Particularly the red figures for the damage penalties, they're almost unreadable on the screen, so I'm guessing they're properly unreadable by the time my YouTube video, which has been recorded from the screen of a crappy laptop, is done with the image. So if you don't want me to read these out, then if I get a significant number of people saying stop it, I'll stop it. But until that time, I will continue to do so because I think it's kind of useful. It shows you what's available. Anyway, so thank you for watching this video. I would if you've watched any more, thank you. Thank you for making it through it, and until I see you, hopefully, in the next video, I'll see you on the road.